Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, my goodness. Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. Hope you had a good July 4th. I took a nice little break as no Grizzlies news broke over that time frame. However, as the team begins Summer League starting on Monday, July 8th, we did have some news come out about the Grizzlies, and on this episode, I will talk about it. We are going to talk about the team making a splash with their new lead assistant coach, and I'm also going to go over the Summer League roster and continue to wonder if the Grizzlies will sign Luke Kennard or any other free agent for their 15th roster spot. Before I get into all of it, just want to let you guys know about SeatGeek. SeatGeek, as you probably know, is a ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. I use SeatGeek a lot for going to Nashville soccer games. If you are looking for the best ticket deal for any event, use SeatGeek. And with my promo code FASTBreakBreak, new users will get $20 off their first ticket purchase. That's right, $20 off your ticket purchase at SeatGeek with promo code FASTBreakBreak. Remember, same as my Twitter handle, FASTBreakBreak. All right. Let's start the episode by talking about the hiring of Tuomas Iisalo. I, of course, have never heard of Tuomas Iisalo. He apparently has many fans in the basketball community. He is a Finnish ex-player who has been coaching in Europe for the last decade. In 2022 and 2023, he was the Bundesliga Coach of the Year. Then he moved to the Paris Basketball Club in 2024. They won the Euro Cup, and that team posted a better offensive rating than any NBA team ever. That's what everyone is repeating. He used a unique offense with a lot of pace, with a lot of bigs setting screens for smaller guards, but also slipping screens, reversing screens, ghosting the screens to allow a lot of downhill action. And they were a bit undersized. And because of that, he's being hailed as a revolutionary offensive coach. Some of the fans, some of the people praising this, you have a guy like Haralabos Voulgaris. I saw this passed around a lot among Grizzlies fans. This definitely was the post that everyone seems to be repeating and has resonated with people. Bob Voulgaris, who, if you don't know, famous gambler. He worked in the Mavs front office for a while. He might be most famous for just being on the Bill Simmons podcast, but Bob Voulgaris says the Grizzlies may have ended up having the most underrated signing of the summer. Now, I don't know how much one assistant coach can affect the win column in the NBA, but the optimistic take of this hiring is it is something where the Grizzlies could greatly improve their offense. And when you look at the video that Haralabos shared about the reasons why this offense was so effective, one thing that might translate to the Grizzlies is the fact that Paris basketball's best player was a very short point guard, and maybe if they can unlock some of those things with a guy like Ja Morant or using a backcourt of Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, they can implement a lot of these things that were super successful in Europe. And then with the elevated NBA talent, that might be able to translate. Now, I think one of the interesting things to consider as Grizzlies fans when you look at this hire combined with the hire of Noah LaRoche is try to wonder what kind of players might best be utilized in these schemes. I mean, Zach Edey, you wouldn't think really would be the thing, but of course, I think these guys are going to be able to find a way to use Zach Edey and his gifts and advantages to create a lot of downhill options for the Grizzlies guards and the scorers, and he is going to be massive setting some of these screens like you could have seen in that video, setting screens away from the ball where he's just clearing out the space so the ball handlers, when they beat their men, they can get right to the goal. Can we use this to forecast what the Grizzlies are going to do with their final roster spot? I don't know. You could, I think, spin it to say, well, it shows they don't care that much about size because he took an undersized Paris basketball team and had a lot of success with it. You probably just want to have shooting and skill, so that might favor signing someone like Luke Kennard or retaining Luke Kennard. Or you could say, well, they need maybe some bigs who can actually shoot and might be experts at this type of play, and then you look at a veteran like Daniel Tice, maybe that guy fits the mold. I don't know. I think it's probably a fool's errand to try to figure out what the Grizzlies would do with their roster spot, but the Grizzlies finally got some news out there about their assistant coach situation. We've known now for a while that they're going to have massive turnover behind Taylor Jenkins on the coaching staff. And now we found out that this guy, Tuomas Iisalo, will be lead assistant. Again, if you want to connect the dots, that means it sounds like, like Brad Jones is gone and Vitaly Potapenko is gone. But we don't know, we don't know much specifically officially about this hire, as it has not been announced by the team yet. And also, as of this recording right now, I'm recording on Sunday late afternoon, July 7th. There's no official Grizzlies press release about their Summer League roster, but there is one posted on nba.com. So I guess I'm going to take that as being official. And as far as official news about the Grizzlies, before I get to some of the names on the Summer League roster, Zach Edey and Jaylen Wells did sign their rookie contracts. There was some mystery, I guess, around whether or not Jaylen Wells would sign a standard rookie contract and take up a roster spot. There was the assumption that he would, but I think maybe some people were hoping he would not, and the Grizzlies would leave maybe an open roster spot to add a proven NBA player, but that was not the case. Of course, Edey, he gets the first round rookie scale deal with the team option on the third and fourth years, and then Jaylen Wells, the 39th pick, he signs a guaranteed deal for up to 4 seasons. The final 2 seasons are non-guaranteed. So again, repeating myself, that means they're using a roster spot on a second-round rookie. It means they're putting a lot of hopes on him panning out and being a useful player. Of course, the benefit of signing those second-rounders is if they do turn out well, you have an extremely cheap contributor. And that is extremely important as the Grizzlies navigate the luxury tax and, of course, the first apron and theoretically the second apron, which also, of course, they're not getting anywhere close to. But Jaylen Wells becomes the 14th rostered player. Also, it's worth saying, second-round draft picks don't normally turn into rotation players. But, of course, the Grizzlies have had some luck at that recently. Just look at Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. Now, with these rookie signings, that is, again, 14 roster players, 1 open roster spot. As of this recording, Sunday, July 7th, still an open roster spot. No Luke Kennard that has been signed yet. We still, as far as I know, as far as I've heard, all the expectations are the same, that the Grizzlies will retain Luke Kennard. As it stands, though, with the roster, with the 14 players under contract, 12 guys from last year, then plus the 2 rookies in Edey and Wells, the total combined salaries, according to Spot Track, it's a little bit over $166 million. The luxury tax line is a little bit over $171 million. They're just over $4 million right now from the luxury tax line with no Luke Kennard. I have no idea what's going to happen, frankly. It seems pretty basic to me that bringing Luke Kennard back and going into the tax is the correct play. But I'm definitely not going to be surprised if they just decide to not sign Luke Kennard and dodge the tax completely. To me, all right, you've chosen not to use the MLE. If you don't use it right now And if you don't sign Luke Kennard, you can use that MLE as a trade exception, or of course you could just use the Steven Adams trade a player exception. And then you could bring in a player later. That's a route you could go. I understand people who are arguing that the best move for the Grizzlies right now is to figure out what you have, which is to find out once the season starts if, say, Zach Edey's any good, how the team looks with Ja Morant and Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart all playing together. So you want to find out what you have before you make a big deal. Okay. I think that's a prudent line of thinking. I just also think trying to convince me that you thought this was the best roster the Grizzlies could possibly build in the offseason and it coincidentally happened to come in under the luxury tax, I feel like that's naive and that doesn't actually make any sense. I think guys you could get for the MLE, including Luke Kennard, like those guys might not be available later in the year. I would rather go into the luxury tax to keep Luke Kennard. That's one option. Go into the luxury tax and keep Luke Kennard. If the season goes great, if Edey and Jaylen Wells are really good, or if like Vince and Gigi have made further leaps, if the team is playing really, really well, all right, good. You can stay in the luxury tax to keep the team together. Maybe you can make some aggressive moves at that point. If the season's going poorly for whatever reason, well, then you get out of the luxury tax. If it's very important to you as a franchise to get out of the luxury tax, you can dump salary at that point by trying to move like Zaire Williams or John Conchar or Santi Aldama or even Luke Kennard, if again, theoretically you retain him. But they haven't done any of those things yet. And so I think there's a lot of us who are frustrated with that, thinking that maybe they're going to cheap out again on the roster. They're going to go 3 straight years without using the MLE when they could. It's concerning. Also, when you look at last year's team, when you think about the team when we dreamed Steven Adams would be healthy, if you look at that team to this team, you got rid of Steven Adams, you got rid of Xavier Tillman, and then you replaced him with Zach Edey, you replaced him with Jaylen Wells. I mean, you got Cam Spencer on a 2-way. That's not a step forward. I mean, of course, the big step forwards from last year's roster to this year's roster, when you think about preseason expectations, last year we didn't know we had something in Vince Williams Jr., and we didn't know we had something in Gigi Jackson. I am very convinced that Vince Williams Jr. is going to be a useful and effective and important role player, and he could have that spot on a playoff level team. I don't know if Gigi Jackson is someone you can depend on for playoff rotation minutes. He has a higher ceiling than Vince Williams, but I'm less certain that he is ready to play in the playoffs right now. Honestly, I think Vince is ready to play in the playoff right now. So if you don't want to compare last year's team and say, all right, we traded out Steven Adams for Zach Edey, and that's basically it, even though that is kind of basically it, I'm willing to accept, no, we added Vince and Gigi, so we're going to be better than we were, even last year's healthy team could have been. I'm just having trouble gumming up the outrageous enthusiasm for the offseason based on the moves that could have been. But again, we don't know what the moves could have been. And if you're thinking that, yes, this is the best roster we could build around Ja and Jaren and Desmond and Gigi and Marcus and everybody else, and then you say, let's wait to the regular season. If we need to make a trade, we'll do it then. Because one reason you wouldn't make an aggressive trade right now is just maybe the trade prices for the players you might find useful are too high. The trade market is too hot. Like you see the Sacramento Kings, they were willing to move around some stuff to bring in DeMar DeRozan. But there's other teams like the Rockets and the Jazz and the Thunder who all maybe are very willing to spend multiple first-round picks to upgrade their team. So maybe if you dreamed about adding Cam Johnson like me, you have like a team like the Pelicans or the Cavs or the Thunder out there ready to outspend you. So you think if you're the Grizzlies, all right, let's hold on to our picks for now. Let's maintain some financial flexibility by not going into the luxury tax, by not going over the first apron, and then we can further capitalize on this roster during the regular season or later this summer. I don't know. That, I guess, is the optimistic read on what is going on right now with the lack of action of the Grizzlies having signed any free agents or having retained Luke Kennard. Although technically, the Grizzlies did sign a guy. They signed Japanese pro Yuki Kawamura to an Exhibit 10 deal. Kawamura is a 5'8" guard, plays for the Yokohama B Corsairs. I'm not going to pretend like I know who this guy is either. Although I know for a fact I've seen him play before because I remember Japan beating Finland in the 2023 FIBA World Championships. But do I remember this guy specifically? No. Can't say I do. But I guess this is a no stone unturned type thing as Kawamura gets signed for a training camp contract, essentially. He's not, by the way, going to play in Summer League. But we do know now which players are going to play in Summer League, and let's go over that right after this short break. All right, according to NBA.com, if you click on the Utah Summer League and team rosters, there is a Grizzlies Summer League roster that looks correct to my eye because it has most of the players that I've already said I expect to be there in Summer League. Now, the players listed, of course, we have the 2024 draft class, Zach Edey, Jaylen Wells, and Cam Spencer all on the roster. We have Gigi Jackson and Jake LaRavia from the regular roster. There were some questions whether or not Jake LaRavia would play. I was expecting him to. It had been said that they thought he was going to. I absolutely think Jake LaRavia should be playing in this Summer League. He still has a lot to prove, and I think the hope is for him that he immediately shows that he's way better than everybody else. That's kind of what you hope from guys in their third year playing in Summer League. But Jake LaRavia still needs experience in my mind. I mean, he's only played 70 NBA games. That's less than one NBA season. So Jake LaRavia is playing Summer League, according to NBA.com. And then you have the two-way guys from last year, Scottie Pippen Jr. and Trey Jemison. And just those 7 guys, I think, should have you pretty excited about the Grizzlies Summer League team. Like I said on a previous episode, Edey in the middle with Scottie Pippen Jr., and then having Gigi Jackson, Jake LaRavia, your shooters, Jaylen Wells, Cam Spencer around him, that seems awesome. That seems like a really good Summer League team. And then I said on a previous episode, I hope we get some of those hustle players from last year who played some tanking games for the Grizzlies, and we got a couple. Deke Giroux, looks like he's coming back. Timmy Allen is going to play. And then the other players on the roster, these are guys I don't know that much about. You have DJ Jeffries. I said he was going to be on the team on a previous episode. We knew the Commercial Appeal had reported it. He's a former Memphis Tiger, Mississippi State player. Isaiah Miller, he is a G League player. I'm seeing some age discrepancies on him. He's either 25 or 26. Kevon Harris is on the roster. This guy, he was amazing at Summer League a couple of years ago. He turned that into a 2-way contract for the Magic. So that guy, if he plays for the Grizzlies, could be a very, very good Summer League player. And then Freddie Gillespie is kind of a journeyman. He's played 29 career NBA games. He's a center who played at Baylor a while ago. He's now 27. And then this guy, Kyle Caslin, I don't know him. He has no NBA experience. He is 28 years old. There is no Tariq Baberovich. That was expected, but that Summer League squad, again, it looks pretty strong. If all those guys play, the majority of the games, I feel like the Grizzlies are going to be one of the better teams there, possibly. I would say dark horse, I take Scottie Pippen Jr. as a potential long shot Summer League MVP bet. I could imagine Zach Edey getting shut down. I mean, if Zach Edey gets just any kind of bump, they're going to stop playing him. I could imagine him playing a few games and then the team deciding they've seen enough. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Gigi Jackson and Jake LaRavia both each play 2 to 4 games or something, and then that's all they do. However, Scottie Pippen Jr., I feel like as a point guard, maybe if he plays all the games, he could put up some amazing stats because he's quite good for Summer League, and so I would consider that maybe a long shot pick if you are interested in wagering on Summer League. Disclaimer, you probably should not ever wager on Summer League. By the way, speaking of wagering, this is not a sponsor or anything, but there are some gambling lines for Rookie of the Year at FanDuel, and Zach Edey is second as far as the best odds to win Rookie of the Year. He's plus 700. The favorite is Alexander Sarr, who's plus 650. Those are some long shot bets. So obviously the Rookie of the Year race is wide open, but I thought it was interesting that right now Zach Edey has the second best odds for Rookie of the Year. I think it makes sense when you think about it that he has a clear path to be the starter. The Grizzlies are expected to be a playoff team. Thus, if all that works out, if he is a starter on a playoff team, if he plays 20 minutes a game, he has a great opportunity, or at least seems like a safe bet to win Rookie of the Year. And also, speaking of some other betting lines, I thought this was interesting. The Grizzlies right now are tied for the 7th best odds to win the Western Conference. They were 10th a couple days ago. They've actually gone up a little bit, but right now they are tied with the Pelicans for the 7th best odds to win the West. The Nuggets, Mavericks, Thunder, Timberwolves, Suns, and Lakers all are ahead of the Grizzlies, and then the Grizzlies and Pelicans are tied, and those guys are slightly ahead of the Warriors, Kings, and Clippers. So I thought that was interesting, especially after my previous episode where Andrew Schlecht and I ranked the Western Conference teams in our own estimations, and Andrew and I both a little higher on the Grizzlies than the Vegas betting market is. But of course, many of you were outraged. I picked the Grizzlies to be the 5th best team, or to right now technically have the what I thought was the 5th best roster when healthy in the Western Conference. Anyways, some final notes for this episode. Of course, the Grizzlies start Summer League on Monday, July 8th. They play the Utah Jazz. I think the matchup we're all looking forward to is Zach Edey against Kenneth Lofton Jr. I mean, that should be fun. Who knows if they will guard each other. Quite the height disparity there. But I mean, mainly, we're just super excited to see Zach Edey play. I know I am. That should be very exciting. I'm planning to do a playback for at least some of that game. So that'll be at playback.tv/fastbreakbreakfast. If you have League Pass, you should be able to log in and watch the game with me in the playback room. So again, check that out, playback.tv/fastbreakbreakfast, or follow me on my socials. I will post about it. And finally, Santi Aldama, congratulations to him that he qualified for the Olympics with Spain. They won their FIBA qualifier today on Sunday. Their group of the Olympics, however, going to be pretty tough. They're in the same group as Greece that qualified also today behind a monster game from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Perhaps you've heard of him. And they're also in a group with Canada and Australia. So that's pretty tough. And I guess finally, we should maybe look, is it worth looking at free agents who could be available? I guess I feel like I need to mention Paul Reed. Paul Reed was waived by the 76ers. It's very interesting. Paul Reed's contract was non-guaranteed this year because the Sixers lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. That's very unusual. The reason that happened was Paul Reed was signed to an offer sheet, and in the offer sheet, they made it tough where it was a likely bonus for the Sixers that they would progress past the first round of the playoffs because that's what they had done the previous year. This is like a weird intricacy of NBA salaries. The team that was trying to sign him was not expected. It was called an unlikely bonus. So they could do this deal that looked bad for the Sixers to match it, hoping that the Sixers would not match it. Well, the Sixers did match it. But then, because of injuries and maybe a bad matchup with the Knicks, the Sixers lost in the first round, thus making Paul Reed's contract non-guaranteed. And then the Sixers, who have been using cap space this summer to bring in notably Paul George, also to bring in Andre Drummond, they then waived Paul Reed to create even more room, which they used to sign Caleb Martin. Would I have liked Caleb Martin on the Grizzlies? Yeah, kinda. I think he's a useful player. I wanted them to get the best wing they possibly could with the MLE. Caleb Martin signed for 4 years, $32 million. Seems like a great deal for the Sixers. But Paul Reed is available, and he's probably the best big on the market right now. He would be a very useful defender to have. Solid rebounder. Just good kind of all-around defensive player. Gets the steals and the blocks. He can guard 4s and 5s very successfully in my mind. Would the Grizzlies sign Paul Reed? I would say the drawback to signing Paul Reed is he's not a shooter, and the fit among the players in the Grizzlies rotation right now, it's not ideal. I don't think Paul Reed makes a ton of sense playing power forward alongside Zach Edey. I don't think Paul Reed would play alongside Brandon Clark, and that goes back to more of the roster fit issues with the bigs you already have on your team. Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. on paper fit, and then you have maybe more questions about the other combinations of bigs. So because of that reason, I don't think Paul Reed is the right fit. And also, going back to the top of the show, or the first half of the show, the Grizzlies are $4 million from the luxury tax line. Are they really going to go into it for some of these players who are out here? I really doubt it. I mean, even like a guy like Davis Bertans who got waived. Davis Bertans, as far as an end-of-the-bench shooter, he's a 6'10" gunner, makes 40% of his threes and 90% of his free throws. You could do worse. I made a joke in the Grits and Grinds Slack channel. He's Luke Kennard with worse PR. Luke, by the way, gets way more rebounds than the 6'10" Davis Bertans gets. But there's still a few guys left out there in the free agent market, like Gary Trent Jr. He does not have a home. He's languishing. Are the Grizzlies using that to squeeze Luke Kennard? Who knows? Anyways, now we have some breaking news to cover about the Grizzlies. It was bound to happen at some point this offseason that something would happen while I was trying to record and edit and get these shows out. But the Grizzlies have, first of all, finalized their coaching staff, and they have officially announced their Summer League roster. Well, the good news for the Summer League roster is it's exactly what was already posted on nba.com. So everything I said earlier this episode looks like it is correct. Now, as far as the coaching staff, this is the announcement that the team has hired Tuomas Iisalo. Also rounding out the coaching staff, of course, Noah LaRoche, which has already been reported. And then Anthony Carter stays from last season. Patrick St. Andrews, who was a hire from last year, he stays. And then the Grizzlies have added Joe Boylan, who coached on the Timberwolves last season. They've added Patrick Mutombo. He was an assistant for the Bucks. He was on staff with Patrick St. Andrews. Wikipedia tells me there is no relation to Dikembe Mutombo. Then the Grizzlies have promoted Eric Schmidt from their video coordination team. And then Jason March, who of course has been the Hustle head coach for the last several seasons, he is listed as an assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. So now, there we have it. Everything's official. There is the new coaching staff for the Memphis Grizzlies. Let me run through the names one more time. We have Anthony Carter, Patrick St. Andrews, Noah LaRoche, Tuomas Iisalo, Joe Boylan, Patrick Mutombo, Eric Schmidt, and Jason March. And the Summer League team is as I described it earlier in the show. So now, let's end everything before anything else happens in the Grizzlies world. So thanks for listening. If you want to try out SeatGeek, use that promo code FastBreakBreak. They'll give you $20 off your first ticket purchase on their app. If you want to support my show, do that at patreon.com/FastBreakBreakfast. You can join my Slack channel. You can join my Grits and Grinds exclusive Slack channel. You can play fantasy basketball with me. You get one bonus episode a month at minimum. Do it all. Patreon.com/FastBreakBreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great week. It's going to be a great week because, again, we got 3 Summer League games in Utah. We got a minimum of 5 Summer League games coming up in Las Vegas. So there's going to be tons of basketball to talk about, and I will be here for all of it. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.